you for tuning in to another episode of the nuID podcast. I am your host, Kuda Mic, and I'm joined here tonight by James Abraham, CEO of MindRight, here as part of our nuMind series to discuss all things mental health. James, how are we today?
Kuda, my friend, I am doing very well. But, I want to get into it. So, what do you want to talk about?
I feel like it's a good time to talk about social media. Social media, good or bad?
Well, what do you think?
I think it really depends on who's using it and how you're using it. But in all honesty, the more conversations I have, the more I feel like it's mostly negative. Makes people feel less than. You know what I mean? I feel like we're just constantly comparing.
Right.
It's not ideal, as I am exposed to it more often than not. Is there like an expert opinion behind this?
I don't think there's an expert opinion per se behind something like social media, because it's so nuanced and it's subjective and it's objective, and it depends on the kind of lens, obviously, that you're looking through it.
Right.
So I think when you say social media, good or bad, I suppose it depends on what your experience has been with social media. And obviously it's a massive, topic to try and tackle, but are there specific areas that you're talking about specific to social media, good or bad?
I reckon self-image. And as we kind of get into that, it also makes me think, I've used social media as an artist. I've felt dirty trying to grow my social media in some of the ways that, you're advised to, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And now I understand that organic growth is one thing, but some of the things that people are able to do to grow their platform to the point that they seem more relevant didn't really sit well with me. But that's another thing that makes me think, if you're not your authentic self online, is that harmful? Is that it's definitely harming others, because then we're comparing to what we think is, a legend or a person who we can aspire to be. But how real is that? I feel like the self-image then gets affected in that.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question, right? The person you are at home and the person you are at work, are they the same people?
For the most part, yes. Although Lisa gets the tired version. Oh, a name drop.
But you find yourself, when you're at work, having to be a little bit more professional, having a little bit more decorum when you walk into a room, not treat it like your home per se. Do you feel like there are these little differences, even in the mannerisms and the way you speak?
Yep. I can't deny that part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, social media is like that. The image that you portray online, we're now entering a world where whatever image you have online, I don't think it's fair to say someone has to be this way offline, because social media is very much a part of our day-to-day living. So it feels wrong to insist who you are online must be who you are offline, because who you are online could be someone very different to who you are offline, because that may be a persona, and that's your choice. You have the freedom to decide who you are online and offline. Just like there are people who go to work and they have a very professional hat and they lower their tone, like they have a bit more of a baritone down here voice when they're in work. And then at home they have a higher voice because they're just a little bit more carefree and stuff like that. So is that person two-facing it? Is that person being a hypocrite or something? Like, it's near impossible to say. I mean, if you're able to be comfortable online as you are offline, and that's the same person, then that speaks volumes of you, how you view yourself. That speaks volumes to your own personal sense of self. And again, that's your choice, your decision. So I think this idea of self-image, and we just covered body positivity last week. The idea of self-image is really how you feel about what you're seeing. You feel good, then so be it. You feel like you're being your authentic self, then so be it. Part of the discovery is sometimes losing yourself. So lose yourself a little bit online, and then it'll give you an idea of who you don't want to be. So yeah, it's a discovery. It's figuring out which identity sits most comfortably with you. So I don't think it's as black and white as we'd like the answer to be.
Well put, because now you have me thinking about the conversation we often have around celebrities, because now we have social media influencers.
Right.
I feel like celebrities get a hard time because, or even professional athletes, we're like, man, you have a duty to be a positive role model. Like you're being watched by so many people. You should be X, Y, or Z. Do you feel like that applies through that social media lens? Because I think to your point, and correct me if I'm wrong, the person using the social media and posting themselves doesn't have to be tied down by society's expectations. They can be whoever they want. But now the person interacting with that content might go, I could be exactly that. Is there a duty or responsibility at all, do you think?
I want to say yes, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like these celebrities, I feel like yes, because they've got a platform and their voices have a platform rather, that they have sort of an obligation to their followers to try and fact check some of their content. I think the world that we're getting towards is getting more and more gray. Because what is a celebrity? We've got Instagram influencers, TikTok influencers. Are they celebrities?
They count now.
Yeah, right? And it's really a hard thing to sort of just put as a black and white. So yeah, on one hand, I can see why people make the argument that because you've got so many followers, you have an obligation to try and spread the right kind of message. But then we go down a different rabbit hole of what exactly is right kind of message.
Fact, yeah. Even as I said it, I was like, what is a good role model?
So
positive role.
I don't think it's a black and white question. I think it's not incumbent on the person sending the message because they're just putting it out on social media. It's incumbent on you as the listener to discern and figure out, hey, is what this person saying relevant to me? And maybe I can give you an example. Have you heard of this guy from US politics, Vivek Ramaswamy? I hope I got his name right.
Yes. Sounds familiar. The Republican?
Yeah. So he's what I view as a far right, sometimes extremist Republican, right?
Yeah.
But I was watching a video on Instagram and he was addressing someone from the LGBTQ plus community. And this person was asking Vivek Ramaswamy, what do you think about transgenderism? Now, his answer clearly was trying to trigger her. His answer was, I think transgenderism is a mental disorder, right? Now, just to be very clear, because I feel like I have to say this, while there is something called gender dysphoria in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, there is something called gender dysphoria where the person doesn't feel like they belong in the body that they were biologically born into. There is something there. It is also something that comes with a caveat because as we try and understand these mental disorders more and more, we're now at the stage where we're like, that may not necessarily be a mental disorder. That is really just something that people go through life. Some people with a firmer belief, others through a more discovery sort of belief. Yeah. So it is not black and white that gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. Now, he said that just to trigger her. But the important thing about what he said that really sort of sat with me and made me think was he said to her that during his campaign trail, he met two women and both these women had lopped off their breasts. One of them had their uterus removed. Now, I don't know if it's true or not true, right? But these two women had said that they really regretted doing that in their teenage years, and now they're in their early 20s. One of them can never have children, and the other one will never be able to breastfeed. Now, the thing that, so what he concluded with was, while he feels every American should have the freedom to choose whatever gender they want, they should only have that freedom when they're adults, consenting adults. and that
Right.
teenagers are still in the process of discovery. Now, psychologically speaking, he's right, because kids, when they're teenagers, they're still discovering their identity. Many people in their 20s and 30s and 40s are still figuring out who they are. So it's really, I felt very conflicted, because he's someone that I view as a very heavy right-wing views, but his point was very sensible, that when you become an adult, yeah, sure, go ahead, choose whatever gender you want, but right now you're a kid, you don't know what you want, you only know what you think you want. And you're going to make a decision that has long-term ramifications. So I bring that example because he's someone that I wouldn't necessarily look at and go, yeah, I align with those guys' values. But he's made a sensible point. And this is what I mean when I say social media is bad or good, because what happens when you watch one video like that for an extended period on social
Especially if you like it. Now the algorithm thinks you're the biggest Vivek Ramaswamy fan.
Precisely. So then now what happens is you'll get a lot more Vivek Ramaswamy content. Now, I've seen some of his other stuff. It's horrible. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says there. And this is where the objectivity comes from. This is where the critical thinking comes from, because you have to be able to look at something and make your own mind up. You have to figure out, like, hey, I did agree with that point, but 9 of the other 10 points that he's made, I probably don't sit comfortably with. So while that point, yep, everything else, nah. But the world we live in is so polarizing. If you make one point, if you agree with this one point, then you're a supporter and you support everything. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just said one point that I like. Don't misquote me. Right? And everything that we view now has to be so one way or the other. I can't be objective. I can't be critical about something, because if I'm critical, then I'm against it. So,
we had a nice chat about that earlier. Like that was a really good example as well, that immediately if you disagree, you're the opposite side. Or if you don't agree with everything, you're on the opposite side. And to your point about the echo chamber that is social media, I'm loving the fact that you're talking about discernment. You know, we need to be able to discern what the actual takeaway is that we actually want from that. Am I going to watch that person again? No. That could be the takeaway is, you know what, that's not for me. But it's now not that has to be taken off every platform because I disagree with it. And I feel like there's that weird area where it's like, I don't like it and therefore it should not exist. And it's like, I know we don't think the people who like it are good people, but they're people and they have opinions and they have the choices. And that's for them. I'm just going to associate differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why the objectivity of something is so important, because another video that I came across on social media, this guy was fasting during the recent Ramadan period, right? And he was filming this lady, this was in the UK, filming this lady on the double-decker bus eating. Now, just from the voice, because he doesn't show his face, but from the voice, it sounds like a young man, probably teenager, and he's sort of pleading in a very polite way to this lady to stop eating because he's fasting, right? And this lady, it's lunch. She looks like she's really in a rush. So because she looks like she's sort of agitated and eating quite quickly, and she's just telling this boy to leave her alone. Now, he keeps pleading with her. And he's just like, please, it's my Ramadan month. I'm fasting. I can smell your food. Please, can you stop eating? And this lady, who's getting more and more agitated because obviously she's getting filmed, is just sort of yelling at him to just leave her alone. And if he doesn't like it, go downstairs, because it's a double-decker bus. And just let her be, because it's the only time she's going to get a chance to eat. That's what she says in the video, at least. Now, he keeps pleading, and he's got a very soft, hey, please, I'm just asking you really nicely, can you stop eating? Because the smell is making me hungry and I'm trying to fast. And she's just getting more and more agitated and sort of yelling at him to just leave her alone, and she's trying to gobble up this food. Now, I'm looking at that video, very clear about the message that this video is trying to send to me. That this boy is sort of the innocent party, right? But I'm going, no, but this lady's right. I know it sounds like she's really agitated, but maybe she's going between jobs, and she's the only chance she gets to eat is there. I mean, yeah, you're not supposed to eat on the bus, but she is. And if he doesn't like it, he can move away. But when you look at that video, you're instantly because he's the one filming, it looks like he's the sort of, quote unquote, innocent party. And that doesn't feel fair to me, because people, when I was looking at the comments, there were so many people who were sympathizing with him. And I went, well, no, like if you don't like it, you go somewhere else. But this video and I have many friends who fast and who are Ramadan, and they'll tell you the same thing. That's their offering to God. That's their penance, right? That's the sacrifice that they want to make. The part of that penance is you don't tell other people what to do. So when I was watching that video, it sort of reinforced this idea that you are led one way with the content that you view on social media, but if you don't view it objectively, then it's sort of just going to pull you all over the place, right? If you go left, you're going to go right, you go right. You're just going wherever this thing is going. And that takes, when you get pulled in all those different directions, it takes away your sense of self, because you lose who you are. And you get lost in the whole rabbit hole that is reels and TikTok videos. So I think when it comes to viewing content on social media, you have to be very objective and to be able to ask questions about the videos that you're watching.
Good point. Okay, so I'm gonna snitch on myself here and say I've been so guilty of reacting to the thing that you see. And now I'm trying to better my ability to go, okay, have they just clipped just enough for me to feel really passionate in support of one of these two parties? Like you're saying, we see that video from the lens of the person who's like, but I'm asking you really nicely, and I'm a nice guy. I'm like, he was nice about it, but then I'm like, she hasn't done anything. She hasn't done anything to you. She's just eating. She probably had, I've started putting myself in the mindset of, even in traffic, they could be having the worst day.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably not like this all the time. So it's like when we then get a snippet and, some people take it too far, they then start going to people's homes and they start doing things in real life where you're like, whoa, maybe you saw the worst of me on socials, but now it's having real world effects, which is just weird. So I feel like, I don't know if I'm any closer, James, to figuring out if it's good or bad.
I think it's allowing people to disagree with something, but accept that people can have opinions, because everything is so polarizing with one or the other, right? That example is just one example. You've got things like the pronoun, right? Gender, sexuality, feminism, right? As long as you say your opinion may disagree, everybody's, oh, you're against this. If you say you're pro-feminism, somebody will say, well, that means you want women in the boardroom. I go, yeah, I want a balance of women and men in the boardroom. Oh, no. If you support feminism, you must be saying that you want more women in the boardroom. I said, whoa, I want women in the boardroom. I didn't say I want more women. I just want men and women to have fair equity in there. Well, that means you don't support our feminist cause. That's not what I said. I said I support the cause, but I think what we're looking for is equality, right? We're looking for both sides to have equity, not just lip service, not just tokenism. We want real effective change where both sides have an equal voice. That's equity. But as soon as I disagree with the direction, suddenly I'm just against the whole thing. And everyone has a black and white kind of view to it, because you have to choose a side. And if I have an objective point of view to one side, that means I'm against that side. Or if I have a pro point of view to one side, that means I'm all for that side. No, I just agree with this point, but I think we're going about it differently. Can we keep having a conversation where we find this nice middle ground, or at least be open about the fact that some of these policies or whatever we're writing in is self-serving? Because that's half the time what these things are, self-serving. So
true.
I think even with DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion, and all this sort of conversation, I think if you're really serious about something like DEI, what you're trying to do is make sure men and women have an equal voice. That's not equality, that's equity. And having an equal voice in something doesn't necessarily mean equal number of men, equal number of women, because that could be tokenism, right? We're talking about actual impactful change where people are put in on merit, not on, token woman, token black guy, token different color from everybody else in the room. Because, and again, when I make those examples, I've also seen companies where there's a lot of Indians and we get a token Chinese person in here. And this is even in Singapore, right? So tokenism isn't targeting one specific race. Tokenism is targeting anyone who's a minority in that group of people. So I think
it never feels right. Hey, you just get the
no,
one person and they just be like, but he's here.
but diversity, it's diversity, and inclusion. So I think when we go down this conversation with social media or with anything, it's very important to recognize that there is an inherent need for objectivity.
Absolutely. And look, I'm glad you brought it up. And we are getting snippets. They're made to incite a reaction. Let's not act like we didn't find out recently that Facebook is going to show you the worst things that are going to make you watch on. And that's a whole other thing. It's like it's made to keep you scrolling and being like, you will not believe what I just saw.
Yeah.
And then comment. Oh, bruv, the people, look, if you comment on Facebook things and have arguments with people, I love you. But you have like better ways to try and have that conversation. I just feel like you said, the worst opinions. And I'm not saying that you're a person who makes bad opinions. It's just they're going to show you the worst opinions. They're going to show you the person who thinks that thing should be allowed. And you're like, racism. And it's like, oh, here we go again.
Well, I see, even with the comment section of things, right? I think from a psychological perspective, what happens is someone doesn't feel like their voice is heard in the real world. So let me make incendiary comments on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and that's going to create a reaction. And that reaction is because of me. So now I know I feel heard. And now I'm going down that track of just saying incendiary things because I want to ignite something. So it hurts anyway. It hurts anyway, right? And this is going down that sort of track of cyberbullying because it still hurts. Because even if I'm someone with a high level of self-esteem, I need to know how to walk away from something because I know I'm about to engage in something that has no merit or meaning. Because what is the debate about? Why am I trying so hard to convince someone whose mind isn't there to be changed? You know what I mean? So there's a workshop that I run called this peer review workshop, right? And it's taken off the premise of something done by Simon Sinek, where a boss stands in front of his team, and what he does is he says his 3 weaknesses, and then we go around the room, and the team says their 3 weaknesses, the weaknesses they think the boss has, right? And the boss can't say anything other than thank you to any of those weaknesses, because there's only 2 things that are happening when somebody says something about you. You either feel something or you feel nothing. If you feel something, then there must be some merit of truth to what they're saying. You say thank you because now you've got something to work on. If you feel nothing, then the emotionally mature thing to do is to walk away. Just let it go. Because you're about to have a fight or an argument over nothing. So just let it go. And emotional maturity is something that we're beginning to see is not something lots of like leaders and all of those types of people have. And so with social media, sometimes the mature thing to do, walk away. You see those comments, you see I mean, it's hard, but even in real life, when you get bullied, what's the worst thing that you can do to a bully? Don't pay attention.
Yeah. Doesn't even faze me.
Yeah, because bullies bully. Bullies are bullied. That's how they become bullies. That's the role model that they have. And so if you don't pay them any attention, they stop. And online, online it's easier, because online you can just stop following a chat or stop following a particular post or or don't
Block
show
'em.
notifications. I mean, there's so many things you can do. You can't do that in real life. You can't just mute a bully in real life.
Let's not talk about Black Mirror and how amazing that episode was.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was terrifying.
Yes, yes.
But to your point, there's something you touched on. You've touched on really, really key things around self-image and the tough things that people go through. I wanted to see if we could maybe get a bit of a lens through which we could look at it from a youth perspective, because I have been fortunate enough to sit down with some teachers, getting to talk to some high school teachers who are shedding light on some of the things that youth go through. And they're saying things like, some of these discussions around gender, identity, and all that stuff are happening younger and younger. What then do you feel like, well two-parter, and I'll get you, my good man, to keep an eye on the shot clock. But two-parter. What, I suppose, let me phrase this question properly. Are there specific risk factors or vulnerabilities that make certain youth more susceptible to negative effects of social media on their mental health? And then after that, we may look at some strategies that maybe parents and caregivers for that age group, what can they use to help mitigate the negative impact?
Okay. I think I can answer both questions simultaneously. With the youth, a lot of times the reason why they are always on social media is because, like anything that any human being does, they're looking for a dopamine hit. Yeah?
Right.
And on social media, they'll get that. So the problem is, if no one is regulating what they're observing on social media, because like my wife loves TikTok because she learns a lot, and she's one of the top nurses in Singapore, right? And she knows that TikTok is a valuable space for information because she follows lots of different doctors from all over the world. Yeah. Same thing with my Instagram channel, right? The number of Indians who message me, about 95% of the messages I get is from Indians, because I think I'm not somebody who actually necessarily believes in representation, but clearly something like that exists, because 95% of the messages I get are from Indians asking about ADHD, about grief, about anxiety, about stress, about imposter syndrome. And all of these people are looking for help. And so they're trying to follow the right kind of channel. So there are the right kind of channels. So with kids, getting them onto the right kind of channels is the best way to help make social media work for you. Because you are living in a delusional world if you think you can cut it out. You cannot. Social media, the phones, the smartphone, it's part of our everyday life. Our watches are smart watches. The Garmin watch, the Apple watch, the Google watch. I don't know what other watches there are. I've got a regular G-Shock watch. But with all these smart
Samsung
watches,
boy.
See? Smart watches, right? So you can't pretend like social media is going to go away tomorrow. You have to accept that it's a part of you. So since it's a part of you, how can you make it work for you? Right? And following the right kind of people, following the right kind of channels, those are the role models that we're looking for our youth. Right? And those are going to help inculcate a sense of self, a sense of identity, a sense of like, oh, I want to be like this. Give them a little bit of purpose. So when it comes to social media and with the youth specifically, how can you mitigate? You can mitigate by sharing content that is useful for the child to follow. Not everything needs to be useful. Like, I love a good fail video, you know?
Yeah, you do.
Not like a fail video where like people are trying at sports and failing. I mean, like, people do silly things and then they fail. That makes me laugh. That brings joy to my life. So, but I also follow like Dr. Julie or Dr. Gabor Mati and all these other amazing people, because I want to keep learning about mental health. I want to see. I don't agree with everything that I see, but it allows me to observe a different perspective than my own, and that helps broaden my world. So I think with children, the key is to help them find better social media role models, if that's what we can call it, and explain, like, see, hey, this, I like this, what do you think? and it gives them a little bit of an idea or direction in terms of like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I don't mind this.
I like that. If I can tie that to something we discussed recently about breaking tradition, are you suggesting that the parent or caregiver kind of meet their youth where they're at first and find a common ground before you can hope to even make a difference? So same way we were saying at the dinner table, before you keep hounding your kid about how was school today, find them where they find interest in engaging. And once you have that common ground, you can actually then shape the conversation to something else.
Yes, mate, spot on. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, and you know, what you're doing, even though you don't realize you're consciously doing it, what you're doing is you're actually building resilience in this child. So in one of my workshops, in the level 2 workshops, which is Anti-Fragility, okay, it's built on the Anti-Fragility workshop. It's inspired by this guy, Tal Ben-Shahar, okay, and it uses his model called the SPIRE model, SPIRE, which is spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, emotional. Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of this we do subconsciously. And within the workshop, we bring the subconscious into the conscious because we're already doing it. Just be conscious about doing it. That makes you stronger. Yeah. You're already doing. And the reason why this model is so useful is because it builds resilience. Because if I asked you what is resilience, you'll tell me, well, I survived all the bad things. How? And the how you survive the bad things is actually how you build resilience. So one of the ways when you are mixing with your child, when you are trying to like understand what their interests are and trying to align their interests with your interests or your interests with their interests, what you're doing is relationships. What you're also doing is intellectual, because you're asking questions. Why is it that you like this so much? What's so interesting about it? Let them engage with you. And part of this is like the E, which is emotional. You're also now very consciously like, oh, I see what you're talking about when you watch this video. It's very inspiring, right? Or you watch a rough video and you're like, oh, I feel gratitude. You're embracing the emotions. So a lot of what we're doing, this is how you build self-esteem. This is how you build resilience. You don't. When people talk about building resilience, they're always very confused. Like, oh, I have to have just bad things and then I'll survive it. How? How do you survive it? The S is spiritual, and granted, not everybody is spiritual, but what they really mean when they say spiritual is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? What's the purpose for you doing all of this? So, do you see how? No, this is by Tal Ben-Shahar. I want to make sure I credit these guys correctly. And you know how much of this you're doing at a subconscious level? All you got to do is bring it into the conscious. And as soon as you bring it into the conscious, you're building yourself up. You're growing your self-esteem, your confidence, and you become a stronger person because of it.
I love that. Sounds very similar to an element of your workshop I have yet to take part in I really look forward to.
Absolutely.
And I should just say the Simon Sinek plug there is the Start With Why book, which I like now, knowing what having your why is about. I will never forget that. So, what was who was the person who had that framework? What was that name again?
Tal Ben-Shahar. His work on happiness and how you find happiness is just inspiring, amazing stuff that this guy does. And it's basically the content that inspired my Anti-Fragility workshop.
Nice. I like that a lot. Also, I don't know if I'm getting the I part correct, the intellectual part, but when my dad asks me questions, the more I was able to answer those questions, the more I felt like I was ready for the world. In fact, when I transitioned out of one job and tried to do the creative thing, being able to answer his questions made me feel like I'm ready for this. Because I went through my older brother. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, I've got this. Went through mom. She's like, oh, yeah, I got this. Went through dad's questions and I got through that. I was like, I'm ready for anything, baby. I can do whatever. You know what I mean? So I get that. I get that. But
that's because it's challenging your belief. It's challenging how much conviction you have in this belief that you're going after, right? True. And the stronger you understand your own belief, the greater your conviction. And that's what your father is doing for you. And it's not just you. He probably walked away from that conversation going, yeah, okay, my boy knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Daddy's very own. Never called him daddy. That's interesting. First time to do it live on camera.
It takes a confident man to call daddy daddy. So hey man, just do you. Don't you worry.
Oh man, look, man. I think what I take from this is, we can't say good or bad, right? It really comes down to the individual, their ability to be objective and to really just dissect the information and discern and make the decision for themselves. And really, the only way you can really do all that sort of stuff is just making sure you get your mind right,
so you can live a better life.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the New ID podcast, where we tell stories from the community. We can't do any of this without your support, and we can't thank you enough. But to help us grow, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Tune in next time for another incredible story from the community.